Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about volume and how to solve for volume. First of all, what volume is, it is a measure of the three-dimensional space that's enclosed by a 3D object. So it's the space within the object. Our fifth grade standard says that we need to know how to find the volume of rectangular prisms. In fourth grade, you learned area and perimeter for rectangles, and the area part of that is actually going to be very handy for this lesson. So first and foremost, if we had a rectangular prism that looked something like this, all we really have to do is just count the unit cubes to find the volume. So we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this rectangular prism has a volume of 12 unit cubes. Or another way to write that would be 12 units cubed, like this. In fourth grade, you might remember when doing area that you might have written something along the lines of 8 units squared or units squared, like this. The reason for that is because with volume, it's a 3D object. When we're finding area, it's a two-dimensional object. So we're finding volume, we actually multiply 3 dimensions to get that volume: the length, the width, and the height. So that's why we see a little 3 up there. With area, we only multiply the length and the width together, only 2 dimensions. So we're gonna put a 2 for squared on area. So here's another example of counting unit cubes to find the volume. I made it look a little bit different, but it's still the same concept. All we would have to do is just count the unit cubes inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this rectangular prism has a volume of 9 units cubed, or cubic units. So instead of counting unit cubes, there are going to be some times that it either doesn't give us unit cubes to count, like it only gives us dimensions, or it might be such a big rectangular prism that we don't want to have to count all of those unit cubes and possibly cause an error. So there are going to be 2 formulas in 5th grade that we need to remember for volume, and remember that these are only for volume of a rectangular prism. So the first formula that we have for volume is length times width times height. So this is like what I was saying previously, how we multiply 3 dimensions together to get volume. But over here, this is also a formula that we can use to find volume, but this one only has 2 dimensions, it seems like. Base times height. But the base is actually how we find the area of a rectangular prism. So the base is going to be that bottom layer. I explain the base to my students to think of it as a cake, like a big wedding cake with multiple layers. The base is that very bottom layer. Whatever the area of the base is, we would multiply that times the height, or how many layers there are in that rectangular prism. So first, let me give you an example of length times width times height. I'm going to just give us this rectangular prism to begin with. So if we're looking at a rectangular prism this way, our length is going to be how many unit cubes across it is. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. From the left all the way to the right is only 4 unit cubes. So that's going to be our length. Our width is going to be how deep or how far back it goes. So we're going to count those 2. We got 1, 2, 3 going backwards. And then we're going to multiply by the height, or how many tall is it. So if we look, we've got 1, 2 tall. So the height is going to be a 2. So we're going to do 4 times 3 would be 12. Drop down the rest. And then we've got 12 times 2, which is 24. So this rectangular prism has a volume of 24 units cubed. Or it's the same thing as saying there are 24 units inside this rectangular prism. This formula over on the side is actually scary similar to this one, but that base. So remember how I said that the base is like the bottom layer of a cake. So however many we have in that one bottom layer, is just going to be multiplied by the amount of layers that we have, or the height. So in one layer, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So our base is going to be 12, and our height would be the same. It's only 2 tall. So 12 times 2, again, would give us 24 units cubed. So you can find it either way depending on what dimensions the problem gives you. I've seen some where it gives you the base and the volume and you need to find the height. I've seen some where it gives you the length, width, and the height and you just need to find the volume. So the area that I was talking about, how it's going to come in handy in volume, is that when we multiply the length times the width, we find the area. So what did we just find the area of? Well, we found the area of the base. So since the base is a flat part, that's the area. It's 2-dimensional. And then we can just multiply it by however many up it goes. The last thing I want to talk to you about volume with rectangular prisms is how to find the volume of composite figures. So composite figures look like this, and they are typically 5th graders' worst nightmares because they look like this. But really what they are is just 2 or more rectangular prisms that have been put together. I think everybody just hates these the most because they're misunderstood. We look at them and we know that there's a lot of work that needs to go into finding the volume of this, but really I like to think of it as just a puzzle. We need to cut it into 2 different rectangular prisms. And we can do that a couple of different ways. So we can cut it like this, so that this would be our first rectangular prism and this bottom piece would be our second rectangular prism. Or we could cut it going this way, so that the front piece is its own rectangular prism and the back piece is its own rectangular prism. It doesn't matter which way you cut it. It will still give you the same volume at the end of the day. The only thing you cannot do is cut it in a diagonal way, such as this, because then you don't have 2 rectangular prisms. Since it doesn't matter, I'll just keep it in that second way. So since we have 2 different rectangular prisms now, we need to find the volume for each of them. And then at the end, we put them together by adding them. So this first one I'll make blue, so that will be labeled rectangular prism number 1. So I'll go ahead and make myself a volume formula for that. Length times width times height. And then that second one we'll label pink. And we also need to make a formula for that one too, length times width times height. And then we can just start plugging our dimensions in. So this first rectangular prism, the length, so left to right, how long it is, it gives it to us, it's 3 inches. So I'm gonna put a 3 for the length. But the width, that's when things start to get a little bit tricky because we see a 5 there. So what I've noticed is 5th graders wanna just grab that 5 and put it right in because it's right there available for them. But they need to think about it as 2 separate rectangular prisms. This 5 is for the entire bottom piece. However, we've cut it across the middle. So we just need to find the width of this piece right here. So we need to take a look at the other dimensions to see if there are any clues that it gives us as to what maybe this piece could be. And if I look, I see this piece is 2 inches, which would make this piece 2 inches, which would also make this piece 2 inches. So if this section is 2 inches and the entire thing is 5, then that means this width from here to here must be 3. And then the height, now I see 2 different heights. I've seen where students want to grab this one because it's just the tallest one there, so they know it's a height, so they plug 4 in. But again, that's not the rectangular prism that we're focusing on yet. So we have to look at from the bottom to the top of just this rectangular prism, which it does give it to us, is 2 inches. So our height here is going to be 2. Then we can go ahead and multiply those all up. So left to right, 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is going to be 18. Okay, so the volume of this first rectangular prism is 18. Now let's find the volume of the second rectangular prism. So we need our length. So the length is going to be the same as this rectangular prism. You'll notice that from here to here, it maintains that same length all the way across. So even though it doesn't tell us up here, it is still going to be 3 inches. The width, we've already decided, was 2 because of this little clue right here. So we're going to put that as a 2. And now the height of this really big piece in the back is going to be 4. It does give that to us. So now we can just multiply straight across, left to right. 3 times 2 is 6, times 4 is going to be 24. So we have found the volume of rectangular prism number 1 is 18 and rectangular prism number 2 is 24. Now what we have to do as our final piece is add them together. When we add them together, we get 42. And I know we're used to writing units cubed, but this one actually gives us a unit. So instead of units, we're going to put inches cubed. And that's how you find the volume of composite figures.